All right, everybody, welcome back to this very special episode to me. Obviously, as always, we talk to pioneers, we talk to builders, and we talk to people in the city of Jacksonville, or as the show's called, PB and Jax. Today, I have the CEO of K9s for Warriors, Mr. Daniel Bean, here to talk to us today. Daniel, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, of course, me too. I know we talked a little bit about how we would structure this. I'd like to talk about Dan being the person first, and then we'll kind of get into K9s second. Something you and I have in common that I love is that we were both Navy.
Yeah. No, I enjoyed my time.
Were you an officer the whole time, or did you go
I
enlisted?
was. I was.
Okay.
I got really lucky. I got an opportunity to go to Vanderbilt University on a ROTC scholarship, and really a great deal. And I had got accepted to West Point, and got an appointment, and then went up there and didn't see any females and didn't see any fraternities, and so I asked my dad why people went there, and my dad was very upset that I didn't go to West Point and didn't talk to me for a long time.
Wow.
And I told him, Dad, don't worry, I'll get a scholarship. And fortunately, I was able to get a Navy ROTC scholarship and had a really great experience at Vanderbilt. I'm sure West Point would have been tremendous. Vanderbilt, Nashville was a little bit more than the Hudson River.
Yeah. So you were a Commodore.
I was, yeah. And so we are a football factory now, having beaten Alabama. And so I was in Tuscaloosa in 1984 when we beat Alabama the last time. And this last fall, when we were watching the game, my wife was like, "Hey, we got to go, we got to go," and I'm like, "No, no, we don't." So really unbelievable to watch that game, and so just to relive the memories from 40 years earlier when I was there in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah. How did you feel about the field goal post going in the river?
But I was surprised that the student body carried it. I thought we'd have our valets and our butlers and stuff like that, but we did it ourselves. So not a lot of practice to do that. So I was I was very impressed with the process, and it's a long walk to the river. So I'm very proud of those people.
Yeah, I figure at Vanderbilt, they're supposed to be smart kids. So
Right,
even though there's not a lot of experience, I think they knew where. I think they knew where the leverage points were and where to stack them, and
right. Yeah, we had
figured
all
out
of
what worked.
our engineers on top of it, so it was great.
And they were filled with adrenaline from the win. That's how they were able to get to the
That's
river.
right. Yep, yep.
All right,
Good
so
stuff.
Vanderbilt graduated, and then straight to the Navy. Was there
Yeah.
anything in between?
So I got my commission on the day I graduated, May 8th, 1987, and then reported to the USS Bogey a couple weeks later. Back then, they would send you to the warship first, and then after a couple weeks, they would send you to surface warfare officer school. So I went up to Newport, had a great time. August in Newport is this wonderful opportunity there, and then reported back to the USS Bogey in Mayport. We did a lot of Caribbean sailing, a lot of drug ops, and then went to Canada, and then we got the opportunity to go on short notice to the Mediterranean on a med cruise with the USS John F. Kennedy, and that was really a tremendous experience for me and great development to see parts of Europe that I never would have seen had I not been on the warship. The warship training, as you know, in the Navy, it's a lot of quiet moments, slow moments, followed by insanely quick and immediate moments that could kill you if you're not careful. It taught me a great appreciation for teamwork, and everybody has to do their job, and no job is unimportant. And so, not something I care to do again for 4 years, but it has made me the type of person that I am today. So I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, I want to get back to that here in just a second, but I'm curious. So you said the Kennedy, so you were on an aircraft carrier.
I was on the Bogey, which is a Garcia class frigate, the greatest warship ever known to man,
Oh, okay.
USS 1047, and it was a little small frigate. And USS John F. Kennedy every month would have to do at sea refueling exercises, and they always picked us because we were the smallest one in the group. And if we would bounce off the Kennedy or something like that if something bad were to happen. So I think they enjoyed that. But it was just so impressive to watch air operations off the Kennedy. We did a lot of tail guarding. You're about a mile behind them, and at night you just got an incredible amount of respect and appreciation for what the aviators go through and landing an aircraft on a, on a runway that's moving both through the water and up and down. Tremendous pressure, tremendous respect for them.
I'm so glad you brought that up because what I did in the Navy was fix airplanes, and I was on
Okay,
an aircraft carrier.
okay,
So I was on the USS Enterprise, And my one cruise that I did with them, we did workups, but the cruise was in 2011. We did a med cruise, so everything
Mhm.
you were just talking about kind of
Yep.
resonates with me a little bit. Um, and yes, flight ops. It's one thing to be stationed at Naval Air Station Jacksonville, which is where I
Yeah.
was, and to fix P3s and to fix these helicopters whenever they're doing training missions. It's a whole different animal when you fix these airplanes. They fly. They're they leave full. They have bombs.
Mhm.
They go and they come back empty, and you're like, all right, I got to fix your radar. I got to fix your sonar. We got to load you back up, and then they're right back at it.
Right. Yeah. No, you're truly carrying out America's mission at that point.
Yeah, it was fun. It was unfun.
Mhm.
It was a lot of things. But you said something earlier. It said it made me who I am today. I feel the same way. But as it pertains to who you are today, what are some of the things that kind of were ingrained or entrusted in you over the course of your career that truly made you who you are?
I think always thinking the contingency, the alternative. The warship, we always had multiple ways to fire the weapons from multiple spots on the ship, and always thinking of contingency, backup, and things like that. And then the next man up. I mean, somebody gets hurt, somebody gets sick, somebody has to leave the warship, somebody has to step up into their position and do their job. And so that type of level of redundancy has always really made an impression on me. And so I carry that over to my civilian life and making sure that in every organization we have that level of readiness. And also just as I when I was in law school, after being on warships for a little while, and my fellow students who were a little bit younger than me, they were like, "Oh my God, the pressure of this real property exam," and I would be like, "Actually, real pressure is when you see the photometer go to zero. Okay, so that's real pressure, or pulling in alongside another ship, or or at night in the Persian Gulf and having a fast attack boat approach you at very high speed, not identifying themselves and not changing course. That's pressure, and so it really set a level of point. It was a point of emphasis for me that I measured everything against those experiences, and they just weren't as important, right?
Yeah, since you're able to compare things to these actual high pressure moments, in these now what we've realized are non high pressure moments, is it able to slow your thinking and aid in your decision making because it's not as pressing or as important as it would be to somebody else?
Yeah, and I mean, it taught me to slow down, to consider your options, breathe, keep your, right foot, left foot, don't panic. And it also helps, I think, frankly, to go through these drills where you consider some bad things happening or things that aren't as planned. And so that it almost never always goes according to plan, right? There's always a hiccup there. And so being able to anticipate it, maybe not the exact hiccup, but the anticipate the hurdle, that there could be a hurdle, and so that if it does occur, then you're able to navigate it, and you really work yourself through the shock of having the hurdle to present itself that you weren't anticipating. So that the Navy really helps me there as well in my life as a trial lawyer or as CEO of K9s.
Yeah, that's the next step in the journey, right? You went to law school, you became an attorney, so cut a little bit of a different career path. And my assumption here is that you went to law school while in service and you were an attorney in the Navy.
Yep, I was Navy JAG.
So walk through that. Walk through the transition of you know being
It
on a
was
boat
it was
and
fantastic. And
yeah.
actually, we if you say the word boat, that's a $25 fine. So it's warship. It's warship.
I thought since it was an internal dialogue here, I was free to say it.
No, I remind people all the time it's warship, my friend. No, ships carry boats. That's what we tell people. No, the JAG Corps was wonderful, and I really enjoyed it. I did legal assistance for the first year, helping sailors with their civil problems, divorces or car loans or whatever they had, wills and trusts and things of that nature. And I found that really gratifying. And then I did criminal defense for the next 2 years, and that was great experience with that. I defended people that committed murder, people that raped people. My very first case was a young sailor that was accused of stealing a screwdriver from the Navy Exchange at Cecil Field. So those are some of those cases. I had a Vietnam veteran who had been AWOL for 25 years at that point, and he had been picked up in a remote place in Tennessee. And so I saw a tremendous amount of experience there. And then I became the senior prosecutor for my last 2 years on active duty, and really enjoyed that. We had 6 or 7 satellite offices all around the southeast, and then Central America, and just a tremendous amount of experience there, really trying to uphold the standards of the armed forces. And it was a great experience. But then what I decided early on in my life is that I wanted to have children, and I wanted my children to have the benefit of what my father gave me, which is, in elementary school, I knew where I was going to go to high school. And so I wanted my kids to have that same thing. And in the Navy, as you get more senior, as you know, you're going to transfer and you're going to go overseas, or you're going to go back and forth to the Pentagon or whatever. And I just didn't want to do that to my children. And also, it was the ability to generate quite a bit of wealth as a civilian trial lawyer and stay in the reserves. So I left 98, stayed in the reserves for another 14 years. So I was able to finish with 25.
Okay. Couple of questions that come from that. Number
Mm-hmm.
one, did you prefer defense or prosecution?
Prosecution was so much easier. Defense, you're dealing with somebody's freedom, and that really bothers me when I see anyone locked up, or I see, a dog on a leash or anything like that. Anything that restrains a human or an animal really bothers me. And so prosecution was so much easier because if you lost, everyone was happy typically, because the defendant was happy, the defense counsel was happy. As a prosecutor, you're putting people away for life, 10, 15 years at a time, and that no one's happy when that happens really too much. So, the defense was much more pressure. I felt much more pressure as a defense counsel than as the prosecutor. And then, from 98 on, as a civil lawyer, basically I'm just shifting money from one person to another with, breach of contract, or I do a lot of trust and estates work where family members, unfortunately, are yelling and screaming at each other because mom or dad loved me more than you, and he meant to give me this and not you. And that's a little unfortunate, but it happens. I always tell people that if everyone did what they were supposed to do, I wouldn't have a job. And I'm very bullish on my future as a lawyer because of that.
Yeah, that's fair. The second question that came to mind on that was, if you knew that you could accumulate some wealth
Mhm.
having your own practice, what made you decide to continue to do the reserves and give away a weekend a month and 2 weeks a year?
Well, I knew that having a pension at the age of 60, which I just got, 3 weeks ago, it works, by the way. It happened, and I got my first retirement check. And then also just,
Congratulations.
thank you very much. And the Navy did a great job. I assumed that it was going to be, take them months to catch up and all that good stuff. And they were right on it. And they had all the information that I couldn't find in my records. So I'm very pleased with the process. But I did it mainly because I also had a personal goal of becoming a captain in the Navy, and that's something I really wanted to attain personally from one of my goals. And also, Jacksonville is obviously the third largest Navy town, and being a Navy veteran is huge in our town, and very helpful. And also, I thought, frankly, working in the private sector, but getting that break every weekend, or once a month or whatever it was, getting to go back into the fraternity sorority of the Navy JAG Corps I really enjoyed that, and I missed that camaraderie. So it was, there were times when, Mother's Day, I was in Cuba, or, in some other place doing my reserve duty. So it was a little bit hard on the family, but at the end of the day, we felt it would be a nice retirement pension, but also nice in the community from a social standpoint as well. And so it worked out. I was able to bounce back and forth between civilian and government, and I found that to be very enjoyable. The change in pace was nice.
I've never really talked about this with anybody. Not that it was a secret. I just wasn't sure anybody would understand it. But whenever I got out, I did the reserves for a little bit, and wearing the uniform 1 weekend a month made it more special to me. Did you feel the same? Like when you
Oh
were
yeah,
putting it on, it just felt better than putting it on every day.
yes, I did. I mean, believe me, I got very frustrated on active duty, and everybody promoted at the same time, no matter what you did, no matter how. I frankly was driven a lot by wealth, and so I wanted my children to be able to go to the best schools they could go to, and I knew that would be requiring some wealth to be able to do that. And so, with having a nice bank account enables you to do certain things that you might not ordinarily want to do. And I never wanted to be in a position where if the washing machine broke, that well, I don't have enough money to fix that, or I don't have enough money to go do that. And so I wanted to be able to do that. My kids, my daughter went to Notre Dame, my son went to NYU. I mean, the schools in Florida are fantastic. I have no disrespect for them, but for them to have the opportunity to go to a Notre Dame or an NYU, was that's what they wanted to do, and we were able to. That's $500,000 right there. So my son, works. He's a senior producer for the Kelly Clarkson show, and so he's really chasing his dream, and he loves that. And I don't know that that would have been possible if he went to Florida State or University of North Florida. It's not as possible. Let's just put it that way. But if you're at NYU and you're in the market there, you're going to have a better chance of getting that opportunity that he wanted. And Notre Dame was a tremendous experience for my daughter. And, she's a lawyer and now she's in Miami and she makes 3 times as much as I ever made, which she says that she's 3 times as smart. So we'll see. But yeah, it's life choices as I try to counsel folks on is what's most important to you. And wealth is certainly, it's not the be all end all, but it also provides you a certain amount of freedom. And there, as you know, there are some consequences and prices to be paid. There are a lot of times that, I work on weekends or something like that. And so there's consequences to our decisions.
Of course. She might make 3 times as much as you ever did, but it only goes half as far.
That's
So,
true. That's true. I'll
yeah.
tell her that.
Yeah. The Kelly Clarkson show is interesting because I will watch that periodically. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not a TV guy by any means, but it's just I work from home. It happens to be on during the day, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that's fascinating that
Yeah,
your
he
son's
loves
able
it.
to do that. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
he worked for Entertainment Tonight, and he worked for the DailyMail.com show with Jesse Palmer, and then he worked with Rachel Ray, and then that's a very difficult market, but he enjoys it, he loves it, and he loves that type of TV, and he also enjoys reality TV. I think he told me he's interviewed every single housewife, and when I tell that to my friends that are women, they're all like, "Really?" and they want to know all the stuff on that,
All the dirt.
um, all the dirt, right? But yeah, those are all. I've learned over the course of time that everybody to respect everyone's decisions and stuff like that, and those are decisions that my wife and I made at that time, and so and we're very fortunate that it paid off.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. And I'm glad it worked out that way too, because as I segue here, you've done a lot for the city since. You've been a part of a lot of organizations leading up to K9s, and we'll get to K9s in a bit. But you've done a lot of work on behalf of the city. Some of it's been volunteer, some of it hasn't. But how important has that been for you? You've been here for so long for you to give your time and energy and focus into making Jacksonville better and helping these organizations be better.
So I think it's a responsibility of everyone to sort of leave their location in a better condition than what they found it. And in Jacksonville, I think I came here in the '80s with the Navy, and then I decided that I was going to come back to Jacksonville. We went out to San Diego for 5 years, and I went to law school at the University of San Diego. But the plan was always to come back to Jacksonville. I thought, Miami was too busy, Orlando too busy, Pensacola I just didn't like as far as enough developed. Tampa was too remote on the corner of the west side of the state of Florida. And I just thought Jacksonville's a tremendous city. It's got 2 interstates that run through it. It's got a water, it's got the beach, got a beautiful port. And so I saw a tremendous amount of potential. And then as I got older and more, once I felt that my children were taken care of, I saw, well, I thought it was and my responsibility to do what I could for the city and to try to develop it. And I think like I said, every generation, I think, has the responsibility to try to leave their surroundings in a better condition than when they found it. So I started to work on a project to bring a Navy warship to downtown Jacksonville in 2010. We're going to celebrate our 3rd-year anniversary tomorrow. It took us
Is that the
12 years.
Orleck?
Yep. I'm the president of that group, and I've been the president since 2010. There was a lot of trials and tribulations in bringing the Orleck. It wasn't just the Orleck. We started with the Charles F. Adams, which is a ship that I was on. It was a midshipman in 1984. We eventually, the Navy just decided they weren't going to give it to us. Congressman Rutherford and Sheriff Rutherford and Congressman Rutherford, and he was incredibly instrumental in that. And then we got lucky, and that's one of the things that I try to let everyone know is that there's a component in your life called fate, and you can have good fate, you can have bad fate. My mother died when I was 3 years old, leaving my father with 6 children. That's bad fate, right? And so how you handle fate is how well you can do in life. And so the good fate, when the Navy told us that we weren't going to go, that Adams was not coming to Jacksonville after we'd spent about 8 years trying to get it here and being approved or disapproved at various times. We went to social media and we announced that we weren't going to pursue Charles F. Adams. And within an hour, the folks in Lake Charles, Louisiana, called us and said, "Hey, we see that you have a pier, but you don't have a ship. We have a ship and we're losing our pier. We're going to have to give up our ship. Would you be interested?" And so I didn't know if you could go to eBay and look up warship, but it was that pretty much that easy, and that started the process. And so the Orlick has really tomorrow, like I said, the third anniversary of it. It's been tremendous. Our volunteers, we have over 1,000 volunteer hours every month. We've had over 80,000 visitors. We've had over 200 private events. We redid the pier. I don't know if you've been able to see it, but we redid the pier as though it was an aircraft carrier deck, and really cleaned up that part of the waterfront there. And frankly, disappointed that the rest of the waterfront there is not in the same condition that we've created ours. That's the same potential I saw in the 1980s when I came here, and unfortunately,
Yeah,
but for the warship, it hasn't changed much. So I've been disappointed in the development of downtown, but when I look in the mirror, I feel gratified that I've done my part. I put $250,000 into this myself
wow,
to make the Orlick a viable thing, and with a lot of other folks in the state of Florida and city council and all like that. But again, that's another benefit of having the wealth, earning it, investing it, enables you to do something like that. And so, yes, I think that at the end of the day, when the sun finally sets on my life, I can look back and say, well, I did make the city a better place than I found it, and we'll see how much gas in the tank we have, right?
absolutely. So, how do you think the stadium deal is going to impact the waterfront outside of where the Orlec is? Because, from my understanding, right, the Four Seasons, the beautification projects, the food and drink district, the shopping district, and everything. Do you think that that'll correlate and bring the beautification up towards where you are?
Yes, it's long
Wonderful.
overdue, long overdue. And I know that, people don't like investing in stadiums and things of that nature, but, we're one of 32 cities in America with a football team, with the National Football League football team. It sets us apart. There are cities like San Antonio that are the seventh largest city in America. It doesn't have anything like we have. And so the development down there is overdue. And I'm just thankful that the mayor and city council folks really pushed it through. I'm very thankful to Mr. Khan. I love to tell him it's thank God for Shad Khan. Thank God for Shad and his team there. And I think it's really critical for the city of Jacksonville to move forward. It's been amazing our inability to do that. And
Yeah.
I've been here since the 80s, like I said, and it's just you walk from the stadium down to the what was the Wells Fargo building, and you're walking by a lot of bail bondsmen and some other places. You're walking by the Maxwell House, which is like the Willy Wonka chocolate factory. People go in, they never come out. And so, and then you walk by the jail. I mean, so no, it's overdue. And I'm very happy that we were able to get it done. It'll be great for the city. It will be great.
Yeah, absolutely. We've always been talking about that this is a city of potential forever. I've been here 18 years, not as long as
Mm-hmm,
you have, but still
mm-hmm,
a pretty hefty amount of time. I've been
mm-hmm.
here. My tenure in Jacksonville is old enough to vote, so I've been here long enough. And the cranes are finally in the air.
Right.
We're starting to see the progress. The University of Florida graduate campus going
That's
in
can
downtown.
be huge.
The Emerald Trail coming to existence. I
Mm-hmm,
think they're now building a trail of some sort that's going to lead downtown to the beach area. I believe
mm-hmm.
I saw that. So we're putting things in place to bring people to our downtown, which has been
Right.
critical forever. My biggest argument for the longest time was if somebody was going to go celebrate something, if there was a bachelor party or some kind of an event, a boys' trip, a girls' trip, or anything like that, nobody really says, like, let's go to Jacksonville, Florida. It is Tampa, it is Miami, it's the Keys.
You're
Sometimes it's
right.
Pensacola if you're trying to like see a nice beach and relax. But you said it earlier about water. We have a river, we have an intercoastal, we have an ocean. Like we could overdose on water at this point.
Right.
So starting to see the pieces come together has been very nice.
It
I will
is
say that
gratifying.
very much so.
So we thought, you can't have enough assets downtown. We thought we're the third largest Navy city in America. There are 44 ships on display in our country in 36 cities. They all tend to do very well in the southern part of our country because of the warm weather. And I think that Orlick is just another testament to how this museum does incredibly well. The Jaguars and Buck Fourth and Jumbo Shrimp, we are the biggest draw downtown.
I've completely and utterly believe that. Also, I saw some statistics on the Florida Theater recently. That's turning into a draw too. There's a show a day there now. And in 2024, they were the fourth largest grossing building, show building in the state of Florida. So
Yeah,
they
the
did that.
renovation, the
Yeah, the
renovation.
renovation. The fact that they outdid even the Vice Star Memorial and stuff like that, because it's $40 to attend a show at Florida Theater. It's like $140 to attend a show at Vice Star, and to see that Florida Theater's outgrossing and that it's such a historical building and that we poured that kind of revenue back into it to make it what it is. Like I said, I think we're making progress towards a very, very nice downtown. I think we're making our headway.
Yeah, I think I'm more bullish on the last year or two than ever before,
I'm
thankfully.
with you.
And really, I mean, what the Jaguars have done and committed to the city is huge. And it's very, as you say, when I was in Nashville, my son went there for graduate school and other visits and stuff like that. I would take pictures of all the cranes and send them back to the city council people until they would tell me to stop. And I would say, okay, I'll stop, but you guys need to see what's going on here. When I left Nashville in the 80s at Vanderbilt, I came here and it was very similar, very similar. It is nowhere near similar now.
Yeah, you say that about so city council. I didn't talk to city council directly, but I was at city hall not too long ago, and I don't think I shared this with you. So I'm from Austin, Texas, and
Mm-hmm.
you know the pre
Yeah,
Austin, you know the post Austin.
right.
I grew up on on a road called Farm to Market 620, FM 620. It was not uncommon to see horses on the road. It was completely designed to get food from the farm to the market. And now that road it's a toll road. You can't even access the road without paying for it. That's how much Austin has blown up. But while I was at City Hall, we were talking about the advancement of Jacksonville. Nashville was an example. Austin was an example. How did we go from what it is or what it was to what it is? And I said, well, what those two cities have in common that we actually have in common with them is that both of those cities are in tax-free states and they both have a river flowing through the heart of their downtown. Jacksonville, Florida is in a tax-free state with a river flowing through the heart of downtown. The difference is they took advantage of it. And I was frustrated for a long time, but now I'm starting to see it with my eyes that it's coming along. So my frustrations are waning a little bit, but that's how I felt. I hope we get to see this thing to fruition and that
Yeah,
here in the next few years, maybe right after the stadium's finished, we can go down and see a completely different city.
right. No, I think it will get there. I'm optimistic it will get there. You know, obviously it's taken entirely too long to get there, but I mean, I tell people there's no way we can screw up this river forever. I was just hoping that it would be done in my lifetime. So certainly yours.
Yeah, I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
So the Orleck, great work, by the way, and
Thank you.
congratulations on the anniversary. What other, you've had more involvement in the city of Jacksonville with the port and with other entities. Can you help shine some light on some of the work you've done over the past, let's say, decade or so?
Sure. So, I mean, the Jacksonville Port Authority, I'm in my sixth year now. It's been such an educational process. To me, the port is the number one economic engine for the city of Jacksonville, North Florida. Every year, the container volume is increased. Every year, our cruise volume is increased. It's very diversified in the revenue streams that it has. And so, to me, we're ideally situated. We can reach 100 million people faster than anyone else other than New York. So it just makes sense to come to us. And so the Harvard evening was something that I was very aggressive in trying to get through. Even before I was on the port, I was lobbying for that. It was obvious that we needed to have a deeper draft in order to be able to get the bigger ships. Now we have to raise the wires, the JEA wires, which should be done by 2026. Again, in order for us to take the biggest ships in the world, and you got to take the biggest ships in the world to be in the game. And so for the longest time, Savannah was just kicking our ass. And Savannah is Georgia's only port, so they pour a lot of money into it. But they have a very long navigational detail, and they also have a very long way to 95. So I think we're, again, we're ideally situated for, like, we reach, as I said, we reach more people in 24 hours than anyone else but New York. So my work on the Port Authority has been tremendously gratifying, tremendously educational. Eric Green and his team are top notch. And I've really, I take a great deal of pride in my small involvement in that.
Awesome. Two questions. Number
Mm-hmm.
one, I remember when I was thinking about the Savannah port, they were dredging and they discovered the CSS Georgia and they had to pull that thing up before they could continue the dredging. Is there any historical artifacts that's even close to that would be discovered in this city, or were you not as historical as the Savannah was?
Yeah, we're not as historical as Savannah was, but there is a Civil War vessel that is next to the Buckman Bridge that's still there. and it's sunk.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. So it's there, but obviously we're never going to get down to that level, get that far down the river. But yeah, no, there's a Civil War ship there that got sunk. Or maybe they ran it aground. I don't know. As a navigator, I can think of a lot of different ways to sink your ship. So as a former navigator, so there's that. But I mean, again, every time the river started basically at 8 feet, right, 8 to 10 feet. So we're now at 47 feet, and so at various locations in the river, and so it's fine. We're doing it responsibly. And again, it just means there's so many jobs. It's not even funny how many jobs, so many millions of dollars of impact the port has on things. Um, you know, Fink and Terry wants to bring in another dry dock, which would be huge because we'll be able to, again, 300 jobs at a lot of money for each individual laborer. Also, keep more Navy ships here and their repairs. And so, to me, that type of development is critical for our city, and we just have to continue to grow. I thought for a long time there's two things really. Is one, we waited for unanimity, and you can't wait for unanimity. You're going to have to. There's going to always be people that say, "Wait, don't stop." And that's something that happened. That's one of the things I think that really hurt the city. That there's that type of detractors, or they just like the status quo. People don't accept the risk, and so that's a difficult. That's not the right position to be in. And I think the city has been monopolized by people like that, and that's what's really kept us back.
Yeah, I could see that. The hurry up and wait factor and
Mm-hmm.
all the different red tape that could come along with it. It's obviously a big factor in the military.
Mm-hmm.
Keeps us from making the improvements and
Mm-hmm.
adjustments in lifetime. I hate to go back to this, but I'm fascinated because I never
Mm-hmm.
knew. I was on that base for 10 years. I had no idea that Buckman had a Civil War ship under there, but
Yeah,
why wouldn't we go get it?
I don't know how much it would cost to excavate it, how whether it would fall apart in that process. So those are those concerns right there. I mean, if I had money to spend on improving the city or developing as an attraction or going to excavate that civil warship or civil ship or whatever, civil warship, I would spend the money on a future plan, right? And so I think they tried to raise the funds for that, but it's just not something that, people want to invest in. Where do
In
you put
fair,
it? Things like that.
well, in fairness to you, you've already brought a ship here, so we already have a museum. So that would be a pretty cool historical thing, though, if people could learn more about it. So I'm going to do a little
Yeah.
research. Thank you for
You're
sharing that with
welcome.
me.
Yeah, of course.
So Orleck,
Mm-hmm.
Jacksport, K9s for Warriors. You've been with K9s since inception. And so, one of the fascinations I have, and what I certainly would like to start with, is how did this come to be? How did we know that dogs were a solution for veterans that were dealing with things like PTSD and depression? How did that come to be, and how did this organization get its wheels?
So it all started with Sherry Duvall. And so Sherry, her son Brett came back from Iraq. He was a private contractor working with bomb sniffing dogs, developed post traumatic stress disorder. So when he returned, she noticed that obviously something was terribly wrong with Brett. But the only thing that would sort of draw him out of the shell was the dog. And so Sherry had the idea of pairing dogs with veterans. And her idea was to take rescue dogs, shelter dogs, and pair them with veterans so that you're saving lives at both ends of the leash. So she started in her garage with a few kennels with fans going to try to keep the temperatures down. Didn't really have any trainers other than her son Brett, but he was a bomb sniffing guy, and so that's a slightly different training task. Then built it from there. And so what I do is, and she was 65 years old when she started.
Wow.
Jerry, yeah. So when I tell people, you may be 55, but you've got another 10 years before you have to get started. So Sherry then was unstoppable with her desire to develop the program. She got this land donated. So we're on the Duval. We the Duval County, St. Johns County line runs right through our headquarters, the Sherry Duval headquarters. And we have a facility over off of Phillips Highway next to the flyover bridge there. That's in Duval. That's our mega kennel. And so the headquarters is where we bring the warriors in for 19 days at no cost to the warriors. They come in on a Sunday. We work with them again on Sunday and then Monday. And then Tuesday morning, we pair them with their service dog. Prior to that, when they've applied, they've been accepted. They've had documented full disability from post-traumatic stress disorder or traumatic brain injury. We were working with them. Their wait list now somewhere between 14 and 18 months, but we're working with them to make sure that they're mentally and physically prepared to have a service dog tethered to them for the rest of their life. Want to make sure that their family is ready for this. If there's any other family pets, that they're ready for this. And we work with them. And we try to get to know them. What are the things that they're not doing that they wish they could do? Mainly it's working in crowds or going to soccer matches or going to the beach and things like that. What happens is post-traumatic stress disorder really makes the individual very reclusive, very introverted. They shy away from any type of interaction with humans and really close themselves off. We've had people here that when they come to us, they haven't been to a mall in 10 years, haven't been to a grocery store. It's amazing how debilitating the post-traumatic stress disorder can be on them. So we're studying them for that time period. When they get here, we have an idea of exactly which dog we're going to give them, because on the flip side, we've been working with the dogs anywhere from 4 months to 18 months. The majority of our dogs are rescue. But what we found was over the course of time that the rescue dog takes twice as long to train, twice as expensive, and twice as unpredictable because we don't know the history of the dog. And so we got to a 5-year waiting list. And so in order to close the waiting list down, we went to the market. And so we started to procure dogs. We are still a majority rescue dog organization like no other in the world, but we do procure dogs from around the world now, Canada a lot, other places in our state, in the United States. But that enables us to serve more warriors faster. And so we also we have a facility in San Antonio, and we have a ranch in San Antonio. So both a kennel facility and then a ranch where we pair the warrior and service dog as well. So we've studied the warrior, studied the dog, and we pair them. About 90% of the time that works. A lot of times we'll be in mid-class and we'll have to replace the dog with another dog that's just not syncing with the human.
Yeah.
90% of the time they'll sync. We have a 99% success rate, and we measure that by does the warrior and the service dog stay together for over a year. And that's where we get our 99%. We also have a 99% success rate with suicide. 90% of the warriors come to us with admitted suicidal ideation. We've lost 2 in 14 years. And so to us, that is a tremendously, obviously 1 is too many, but the numbers are, I think, really self-explanatory about how successful it is. And I've often wondered, a warrior, him or her have a spouse, and typically they have family, they have mom, dad, brothers, sisters, children, whatever. And they detach from them. The PTSD pushes them away. But then when we give them a dog, that's what brings back their quality of life. That's what brings them back into society. I mean, that's what brought Brett Simon back into society. And so we think it's the unconditional love of the dog. The warrior, the dog doesn't talk to them. The dog, doesn't say anything, doesn't expect anything from them. And so it's just unconditional, right? And so we think that that's what helps the warrior regain their quality of life. And I tell you what, in the 19 days when they're here, it is tremendously gratifying to watch them come to life, literally come to life. And there was one gentleman, when I speak to them on their first day here, they typically will not make eye contact with me. They're not happy to be there. They're very anxious. They're uncomfortable. They're with people they don't know. They're in a place they don't know. All of those are really bad too. And those are things that increase your anxiety, which is one of the worst things that can happen when you have PTSD. And this guy wouldn't look at me, wouldn't talk to me, wouldn't acknowledge me. But then, the day before his graduation, I caught him in the parking lot dancing with his dog. Something he never would have done, ever would have done. So it works. It's amazing to see the quality of life come back to these people. And then when they leave here, we stay in contact with them the whole time. I like to tell them it's all Hotel California. You can check out, but you can't leave. The dog is ours, until we let you adopt the dog formally or you retire the dog. But we make them check in with us. We make them recertify. We remind them that this is not a pet. This is like a wheelchair, okay? And you use it as a wheelchair. You use it as a cane. And this dog will help you through all those situations. And that's really what the service dog is meant to be. Not only your battle buddy, your companion, but it's there to calm you. And that's really what the service dog does.
Obviously, Dan, amazing work. How would you explain The you said some 5-year waiting list. You're trying to condense it. This started so long ago, there probably wasn't a waiting list. As this has expanded, is this more? Does the waiting list exist and the trying to get access to these dogs exist more because Canines for Warriors has grown as a brand and more people are aware of that, or is that because more PTSD cases are becoming more and more prominent?
I think it's both. I mean, our waiting list now is about 14 to 16 months, right? And so what we found, frankly, is we want everyone to wait at least 12 months. We don't want you to just decide, wake up one day, I want a service dog, and then 2 weeks later you're in class with us. That's not a good recipe. I mean, this is a huge life change. Okay, so you came here on a plane. You're going back, and you're going to have a service dog, and you need to know how to put that service dog into the proper position. You're going to be with that service dog when you go to the bathroom. What am I going to do with the service dog? When I come home and I have my own dog, now I've got another dog. What am I doing? How am I doing it? We go through all those type of things to prepare them for that. And so anyway, I think, like I said, I think our waiting period is somewhere between 14 and 16 months, and we called it down. And one of the ways we were able to do that is by not being exclusively on rescue dogs. We've also increased our facilities, and obviously, I think we've increased our popularity. We're now with 8 NFL teams. We're in NASCAR cars. We're in golf tournaments, TPC, Bolero Open, Byron Nelson. We have country western singers singing about us using our brand. And so we're spreading the word. We are the nation's largest. And so with that becomes interest and desire to join us. And so we welcome that. We don't compete against anybody in our industry. We're all in it competing against suicide. And suicide is an evil competitor and it cheats. And so we're here to help everybody. There's like 300,000 veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder. So, we're helping 10 a month, 10 to 12 a month. I mean, that's really just a little drop in the water, right? Or drop in the bucket. So we need other folks to step up and help. And then, as you may know, only 45% of us veterans bother with the VA, right? I'm part of the 55% that wouldn't want to set one foot in it. And so if you take the 300,000 that the VA has identified and you have 55% of us that don't go, then I think the number is greater than 500,000. So you have 500,000 veterans walking around with PTSD. And then, let's just throw in the law enforcement. Those first responders, the number one killer of first responders is suicide. We think the cause of suicide is post-traumatic stress disorder. And then you talk about your sexual victims. We've done 1,100 pairings. 25% have been female. Of the 25%, 90% were raped on active duty. Okay, that's a staggering number. Staggering. And so for us, the service dog with the female is a double component for us. It lowers their anxiety, but also serves as a line of protection. That it does serve as a line of protection for the male, but for the female, it's an added line of protection for them. And so we have a special emphasis on that. We work a lot with the Wounded Warrior Project and other organizations in our country to really promote what is happening here with females. I think 1 in every 3 females in armed forces is going to be sexually assaulted. It's a staggering number. It's unacceptable. I was on a ship with no women, and the JAG Corps, we just didn't have that problem. It's a 9 to 5 job typically, unless you're on a warship or something like that. So you just don't see it. You're immune to it. But you're on the aircraft carrier when females are on it. It was a much more dangerous setting for that. Frankly, I don't think the armed forces does enough to call attention to it because they don't want to run down recruitment numbers. But I think they have an obligation to really emphasize it going forward. And so we made it a point of emphasis at K9s to really publicize it and to work harder to get more female classes. So we'll do 4 classes a year. 4 of our 12 will be female only. And I think we can even build that number. The other thing is all of our work that we do, we partner with the University of Arizona. It's our academic partner. They had a published study from the National Institute of Health funded in June of 2024 that proved what we know, which is warriors with post-traumatic stress disorder that have a service dog have lower anxiety levels than those that don't have a service dog. That was, it's not rocket surgery, as I like to say, but we're getting to the point now where we're going to do brain scans of warriors before and after to really prove the point that the service dog does act on the human in a very positive way. And we think that those things are relatable to first responders that are not veterans and also sexual assault victims.
Yeah, the brain scans are such an incredible idea. I mean, it's going to be to some people who think like mental health is a joke and stuff like that, I think being able to see physical data
Right.
is going to be incredible.
Well, I'll
Okay,
tell you, when I in law school in 1994, one of my friends went off to Iraq. She came back, and she had PTSD. I didn't know that, and I had no idea what her problem was. I was like, "What is your deal? I mean, what's wrong?" And she couldn't articulate it. She couldn't explain it, and I was a terrible friend, right? I was like, "I don't get it. What is her problem?" And I just lost touch with her. And so here I am, 30 years later, and I know exactly what her problem was. And, I feel that I was so ignorant to that. And so there is a sense of urgency on my part that I'm trying to catch up for that mistake.
good on you.
Thanks.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, I think you don't know what you don't know. The data has become more and more clear. Obviously, you were talking about the NFL earlier. CTE is now becoming more and more noticed and respected. And before we didn't think anything of it. Obviously, we feel the same way about PTSD. I want to kind of walk through processes, if you don't mind. Is there a particular breed of dog that you guys target that you see gets the better results?
No, not a particular breed. I'm always amazed at our diversity in our dog selection. Every morning, Randall, I get to go over to our kennel and I get to pick out a dog to spend the day with me. And so I always try to pick a different dog. Right now, I've got a poodle. You may see that my eyes have been averted at some points. So I have Teddy with me right here, and Teddy is taking a little nap. Sometimes Teddy will get up, and I'm like, "Okay, Teddy, hang in there, buddy." But this morning, I had a different type of dog. I had Hawk, and so he was an all white, sort of a shepherd like dog. And so what we look for is a younger dog, anything younger than 4 years is what we're looking for. We're looking for a dog that weighs 45 pounds or more, so that the warrior can brace themselves on that dog. Um, we do kind of shy away sometimes from pit bulls because what we want, we're trying to reintegrate a warrior into society. Pit bulls sometimes have a bad reputation, and so it's harder for a warrior that's trying to reintegrate to have a pit bull as their lead thing. So we sometimes shy away. That doesn't mean that we have used pit bulls in the past, but we don't use them at a very high volume. We love the pit bull mix, frankly, is what we're looking for. The yellow lab and the black lab really do really, really well, and they're great dogs. The golden retrievers as well, too. But I've been very surprised. The labradoodle, hypoallergenic, and we have folks that now really need those type of dogs, so we use them as well. And so I'm amazed, constantly amazed at the diversity of the dog that we get and the diversity of the success that each dog has. So we do typically 2 dogs for every warrior. For the dogs that don't make it as service dogs, we call them change of career dogs. And we either adopt them out. So last year we did in 2024, we had 150 adoptions in Florida. So what do we do with the remaining dogs? The remaining dogs, we have a program called the Station Dog Program. Highly successful. We place these dogs in law enforcement or fire departments and things of that nature, first responders around the country. It is incredible for branding for us, marketing. It has been wildly successful. We have dogs at the Border Patrol, the FBI, NCIS. St. Johns County, I think, has 5. Duval County has 6. We put a ton of dogs in Michigan, New York. Funny thing, we took a dog up into Cincinnati to the Cincinnati Police Department. That day that she got there, she was on the field for a Cincinnati Reds game, and it was the center of attention. Everybody loved her, and all of a sudden, the next day, we got a phone call from the Cincinnati Fire Department. They were very upset that we hadn't given them a dog. So our next station dog went up to the fire department in Cincinnati so that those two could compete with each other. But it's a tremendous program for us, and really is a nice way for us to find. The service dog has to be able to focus on one person, and our station dogs are typically dogs I like to call the sorority fraternity dog. They like to see everybody. They go from person to person to person, and they have a hard time concentrating on one person. So they're perfect dogs for law enforcement to really reduce the stress. One of our warriors, we have a lot of our warrior graduates are ambassadors, and I think he says it best when we love to take him to DC. He walks the halls of the Capitol building and Rayburn building and all that good stuff. And he'll tell people, Senator, before I came into here, I was walking down the hallway. People were looking at me. They were smiling. They knew they were looking at the dog, Doc, and smiling at Doc. They knew they couldn't touch Doc. They were very respectful. But when they went by me, they were in a very good spirit, right?
Yeah.
So if I didn't have Doc and I just had a T-shirt that said I'm fully disabled, I have PTSD, they wouldn't make eye contact with me. They wouldn't smile at me. They would do everything they could to avoid me. And so the service dog, I think, has a tremendous impact on their ability to integrate themselves with society. I foresee a proliferation of service dogs as we move forward as a society.
The first off, I had no idea about the dog program, and that's why we do shows like this, is to learn more about organizations. Everybody knows, I say everybody, most people know about K9s for Warriors, and that you match dogs and veterans who
Humans.
suffer from PTSD. But no, I would venture to say a very small percentage know that for the dogs that aren't paired, they are put in incredible situations still and still have an ability to help people
Yep.
at an even larger scale.
Yeah. No, they don't know about that. You know, that's our job and our responsibility to sort of spread the word. But no, it's the law enforcement, the station dog program, tremendously successful. You know, we recognize that the leading killer of first responders is suicide, and we know that that's in our view is it's caused by PTSD. So we're doing everything we can to prevent suicide, and so to the extent that we can push a dog that wasn't good enough to be a service dog into a different job and probably save lives, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, and so I assume, correct me if I'm wrong, the flights into Jacksonville or San Antonio, the whole match process, the training process, everything, that is cost free to the veteran,
Mm-hmm.
correct?
Yeah, the veteran. Sometimes we make a veteran pay their ticket to fly in, right? Because we want to make sure that we don't want to make it easier for them to say no thank you at the last minute, right? So we make them pay for that, and then we can reimburse them, okay? But we want them to have some buy-in. And believe me, a lot of these folks are reclusive, they're skittish, they do not want to go out in public. So they're going to have to go on a plane, they're going to be in public, they're going to not like it, their anxiety levels are going through the roof. And so we have them do a little bit of the buy-in. But after they get here, everything else we pay for, everything. You're staying with us for 19 days. We're flying you home. We're taking care of your dog. You have a problem with your dog when you leave here, let us know. We'll help you take care of it. We provide incredible wraparound services. Every week I work with warriors. We have a whole group of folks that work with the warriors and all of their problems after they leave here. Right? As a trial lawyer that's worked with thousands of veterans, uniquely sort of qualified to help people with their legal problems. And so we do that. We're very aggressive about enforcing the American with Disabilities Act, right? Or people, they go back to their apartment complexes and they're like, oh, you can't have a pet. And we're like, oh, it's not a pet. That's service dog. And there's a thing called the American with Disabilities Act, and you need to learn about it. And so we're doing that, and we keep track of our warriors as well. And they are very aggressive, watching each other on social media. If somebody falls off the radar, we know about it. We're told about it. We reach out and really try to make sure that they're okay. If somebody loses their service dog, they get head of the line privileges. They come back first when they're ready. Everyone mourns differently, and so some folks we had a female last week scheduled to come next week, and she just said, I'm just not ready. And so, one of the things that I like to educate folks on is our clientele is not like you and me, right? They're fully disabled. They have PTSD, and everyone's gonna react slightly differently. When I do the legal lecture for our team, for our warrior class, both here in San Antonio, like, you guys are fully disabled, and I know you may not like me to tell you that, but you are fully disabled, and you have to recognize that. And so that's hard to swallow. For you or me, for me, somebody to tell us, hey, you're fully disabled, that would be very difficult for us to acknowledge and to go through life with. And so that's part of the process that they have to endure.
What would you say or do or advocate for? Let's say that there's a civilian that went through extreme childhood trauma, abusive parents, could be sexual assault, it could be a lot of things, and they're also struggling from PTSD, but a resource like this is not available to them. Is there a pathway for the civilian sector to get involved in something like this or recreate what you guys are doing?
Eventually, yeah. No, I mean, I think we see the need, and we're trying to take care of veterans first, but I can see a day where we might have a spinoff, or we might do something differently, or we'll encourage someone to do something specifically for that. I think one of the leading indicators of whether you're going to be an individual that suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder is whether or not you suffer something early in your life. And so I've worked very closely with 9 veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder in the past decade, right? All 9 slightly different from each other, female, male. I mean, I've slept on their couches. I've taken their weapons away from them. I've taken them to facilities. I've Baker acted them. I've done everything with them. All 9 had something in their childhood. Okay, so I think we're going to find as a society that the folks that suffer from post traumatic stress disorder are more prone to suffer from it because they've had something. And ultimately, what I would like us to see is that we're testing our armed forces to determine whether or not they are more likely than not to suffer from post traumatic stress disorder, and we do our very best to try to keep them away from that type of situation on the battlefield. Right? Kind of difficult, but I think as we get more intellectual in our who goes where, I think we can get there as a society that we know exactly who you can join the armed forces and everything. That's not going to be, I'm not going to prevent you from doing that, but I'm going to do everything I can to prevent you from having to be more likely than not to endure, IEDs or shellings or things of that nature. And obviously, nothing's perfect, especially in an organization as big as ours or armed forces that we deal with. But we can, I think, do better in identifying candidates that suffer from post traumatic stress disorder. And I think you'll find that virtually all of them have something like you just mentioned in their childhood.
What's the future hold for K9s? What's the next big bridge to cross? What are you guys focused on in terms of growth or improvement or anything of that nature? What can people look out for moving forward?
Yep. So our mission is to end veteran suicide. And so in order for us to do that, we have to be able to save more lives at both ends of the leash. And so this year in June, we're going to be the first time we're going to take our pairing on the road. We're going to go to El Paso and do a class there. And so we don't have any brick or mortar in El Paso, but we were able to find a facility that will house us for the 4 week period that we'll go in, get ready, and then execute. El Paso has been very warming to us. We've been in there with our station dog program with Border Patrol, and they were like, "Hey, come back, do a class here." So I think what we'll do is we'll do about 150 a year in Florida and San Antonio between the 2 locations. So in order for us to get to 300 lives saved every year, we've got to have to go to alternative locations, and it will also be good for us for branding and fundraising things of that nature. So we're going to do that. We really want to get the brain scan program off and running, and it's a $1 million a year program, and we're actively seeking, a donor to support that program. I think that'll be groundbreaking for us. And then next week we'll be on the Capitol Hill with the SAVES Act, which is the Service Dog Assisting Veterans Act. This is something that we have written, we have lobbied, we have prepared. It will force the VA to pay $10 million a year to purchase service dogs for veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder. The VA has been slow to come around to service dogs, and we understand that. We work really hard to help them implement the program when it gets enacted. It'll get enacted this year. It'll be the first time ever that the VA's had to do that. The Pause Act that President Trump signed prior to the end of his first term, the VA was able to make the modification so that all they had to do was put on training for the veteran that purchased their own service dog.
Mm.
Really not a great thing. But we understood that the VA doesn't know what to do with service dogs. They don't know where to put it. Do you put it under prosthetics? Where do you put it? And so how do we implement it? How do we exercise it? So we recognized that we needed to shift from criticism to optimism, and so to help them implement the program. And we have the folks in the VA now with the administration change. I think they're really very pro canine. We have some very high level officials that are very familiar with what we do and understand that the service dog is better than any prescription medication you can give somebody. So getting that through, so our really 2 big objectives this year is to get the SAVES Act passed and then get it implemented in 2026. And then the road show, as we call it. And last but not least, we're going to finish the veterinarian clinic here in by the flyover there, the Nocatee flyover. That'll save a lot of money for us. Farm out to a third-party veterinarian. We'll have one on our campus, and then we break ground on Kennel A. We have Kennel B and C. It allows us to hold about 90 dogs, and then eventually, when those 2 are done, when Kennel A and Kennel D are done, we'll have 160 dog capacity, and that'll be the biggest mega kennel in the world. That's what's coming.
Going on. Yeah, you got a lot going on.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun.
I know we crossed the hour mark. I could honestly talk to you for hours about this. It just seems like there's still so much more to unpack and uncover. So I'll offer you this. Why don't we have you back in a couple of months and let's talk about some of the things that have been going on and obviously the impact we're having with the city and the importance of the fact that K9s for Warriors is here in Jacksonville, which I think is huge. In the meantime, how can Randall Thomas, how can the city of Jacksonville, how can the people that live here, how can we support you?
I think just by encouraging veterans that are in need to reach out to us. I think, I'm happy or gratified by all the ones, the 300 people we have on our waiting list and things like that. I worry about the ones that are in the room right now, shut off from society and don't know about us. And so if you know a veteran that's done that, and Vietnam veterans too, where we don't, there's no litmus test, right? And so we take Vietnam veterans. We just had one in our class from Hawaii, and he needed a water dog, right? So he does a lot of surfing. But if you know somebody that you believe might be suffering from PTSD, please encourage them to reach out to us, to inquire from us. Those are the ones I'm really worried about, Randall. The ones that are reclusive and that um, don't know the first thing about us, and so those are the ones that I want to encourage to give us that chance to help you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll make sure a lot of that's in the show notes. I know we have other great organizations in town like the Fire Watch, who, for those of us who became watchstanders, like, we've been trained to identify things like that. And so I urge people to get certified with the Fire Watch so that they can be on the lookout for things like that. And then obviously find them an opportunity to get to you to
Yeah,
be to work themselves on the mend.
I appreciate that. I'm a board member of Firewatch, and so it's a wonderful organization. Operation in Uniform, I'd like you to talk to them, Randall, and what they do. And so, yeah, no, I appreciate it. Just bringing attention to it and helping our veterans to have a quality of life that they deserve. So, thank you.
Of course. Yeah, no, and thank you. I really do want to end this by saying, on behalf of myself, for veterans, and for the city, thank you and your team for everything you do and
Thank
everything
you.
you continue to do, because the impact is there, and we're very appreciative of every life you save. So thank you,
Thank,
sir.
thank you for the opportunity.
Of
You take
course.
care.
You do the same. Well, let's do this again soon.
Yes, sir. Bye bye.
All right, Dan.